What are we talking about?
I don't know. I just got here. What do you want to talk
You
about?
came in like a tornado.
Per usual. I don't know why you thought it would be any different, but
Awfully fidgety today, too.
every day of
We
my
heard like
life.
a bunch of ruckus downstairs, and we were like, "Did somebody break in? Are they
Oh, I
like
already knew.
destroying
I didn't even look.
downstairs?"
I already knew who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I came in kind of normal. Now you're making me self-conscious.
No, you did. I didn't even hear you until you asked to use the bathroom, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll announce myself next time.
I mean, you did.
What do you mean?
Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. I don't know what is wrong with you to invite me back, but here we are.
I mean, I don't want to mess up the algorithm for inappropriate content, so we'll just let that one go.
All right. You've got what, like a minute, she said?
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
We'll talk about the real estate market?
Sure. Let's do that.
Yeah. Does it suck?
I don't think it sucks. No, I think it's different. I think that it's shifting as it does. But no, I wouldn't say that it sucks. I just think people need perspective on it, and I think there's a need for like education surrounding what it is now.
We've been, because I live in a bubble most of the time.
I'm sure
So-
happily.
Try to be.
Yeah.
It's when I leave the bubbles when I'm no longer happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, for months now, we've been pretty much booked up, turning away inspections every week. So it's always shocking to me when I talk to somebody. I'm like, yeah, so slow. You know, yeah, I'm down 40%. Yeah, whatever. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That is surprising. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you're probably really buy side heavy, I could see where it
Yeah. And it's not
slowed
just
down.
realtors. Like I think it was a title company. They were talking about how they were 40% down year over year.
Yikes.
I was
Interesting.
like, nope, we're having the best year we've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, even better than the COVID years. So
That's well, I mean, when did you guys see people waiving inspections? Like, when was the thick of that for you guys?
It was like before I joined.
Really? So, like, what year was that? Like, because
21 to 22, maybe.
okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Because I got
So
in,
yeah, because you're just over 2 years now, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah, because I had a solid like couple years, 2-3 years under my belt, where it was like kind of what we would call a normal or like
Yeah.
more balanced market, and then it went into like pure chaos there for a bit, and so. Then that's what I think is funny is when people say that like, oh, this market sucks. I'm like, does this market actually suck, or were you just used to the chaos? Like, did you somehow convince yourself that that was normal?
right, and I had that conversation with a lot of people. Like, you got to go past to like if you were in business, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 to those analytics to figure out, because I started in 2019, right? 2020 is when the lockdowns happened. I have no bearing on what normal is because every year has been different. And I have a track of when I can expect inspections to go up and when they're going to go down as far as months go, but as far as actual numbers, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So they tell you when you're trying to figure out what is normal, what is average, for someone who's been in business for 10 years, you take out your worst year and your best year, right? Your worst year is typically your first year. And then your best year, take it out because it's probably an anomaly, right?
Right.
To get what it's supposed to look like. The problem is that so many people flooded the industry, not just realtors, but home inspectors and lenders and title people during COVID. So there is
'Cause it was
zero.
easy money, Cindy. It was
I know, right?
easy.
So easy. So there's zero semblance of understanding what is normal since day one and post COVID, everything. There's nothing normal post COVID.
Right.
Nothing that we do is normal inside this industry, outside this industry, personal life, whatever. Everything has changed and nothing's going to be the way it was. So I don't think people just truly understand. And then you can't go. You have to, like, who are you talking to? You know, because if you're not marketing or running your business like the person you're talking to, then yeah, it's going to be different. You know, like if a home inspector says, yeah, man, it's really slow for me. I'm not feeling that, because you don't have the same business plan as I do.
Yep.
You know, so, and I think that's always the problem if you get down to it. A lot of people blame the market, they blame the area, but I always tell people, is there anybody where you are that is actually busy? Because if there are, then what are they doing that you're not?
Yep.
If everybody you've talked to is slow, like everybody, then yeah, let's start chalking it up to the market. But if you got people that's capturing market share, then what are they doing that you're not?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it for me that I see too is during the height of the market when we saw a ton of agents coming in, I really kind of empathize with those folks who joined in at that time and who are trying to still hang on now because their perspective is so warped.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like they throw up a listing and it's sitting for 10 days and they like can't even fathom that. They're like, what the heck? Like, this is wild. And it's like, well, yeah, like that's normal real estate. Like the days of like throwing a sign in the yard or not even getting a sign in the yard and having multiple offers and all of that within the first like 2 hours, like that's not reality. And so I think that those people too, like when you're talking to somebody, and if I'm talking to someone and they have such a negative outlook on the market and what's going on, I'm like, when did you get in? Because that tells me a lot about what your perspective is and whether or not it's a little bit warped from just the
and
experience.
a lot of it is because it was so easy, quote unquote. No one took the time to actually learn their job, right? Learn what it meant to be an inspector, a realtor, a lender, whatever. And we were having this conversation a little bit ago at a meeting with the whole settlement thing, right? One of the people I was talking to, they have a listing of investment property, and they offer 2% to the buyer's agent, and the buyer agent terminated the contract because they refused to go up to 3%. Yeah. So
did the buyer terminate that contract, or did
that's
the buyer's
where,
agent?
Right. So that goes down that whole rabbit hole, right? And, you know, my comment was, I had a question. And it was like, and the question was simple as, if I'm selling the house as the seller and I tell you I'm not paying the buyer's agent, I'll pay you 4%. And then you turn around and say, you know what, I'll split it with you. What does that do? Because I told you I'm not paying them. And I find out later that you actually paid them through your compensation. Well, that wasn't the deal. But there's a lot of agents out there that's just say, well, I'll just go behind my seller's back and go ahead and split the
I don't
commission.
see how you do that for two reasons. Number one, your listing agreement is very specific on what's going to happen. And I mean, there's literally different scenarios are broken out. And I actually like the changes that came to our listing agreement. So number one, it's already agreed upon, and that's a contract. Like that in and of itself is a contract that exists ahead of time. So to me, I can't amend that or make changes to that without the consent of the party who signed that with me. Yeah. And then my other question is, once you get to a CD or closing disclosure or HUD statement or ALTA, all of the parties in that transaction have to agree. And that's where, I mean, that statement literally breaks out every single financial anything that happened within that transaction. And so I don't know how you get that signed off on if like
but you go in these
no
mastermind
one paid
groups
attention,
and that's all you're seeing.
That's
when
wild.
That question pops up is, oh, I'll just go ahead and just split my commission. I'll
like
charge 6%, and then I'll just go ahead and give them 3%, so they'll bring a buyer to the table. When the question specifically says that the seller refuses to pay the buyer's agent, well, I'll just charge 6% and I'll split it. No.
That seems like a fast way to lose your license.
Right? But that goes back to people never truly learned their job, you know, because it's so easy, and now there's challenges involved with the job.
Yeah.
And instead of actually doing the deep dive, it's taking shortcuts because you don't know any better.
Yeah.
You know? But we're also in an industry where it's contracts, but 90% of the time contracts don't matter because no one's being held.
They're not
to
enforcing them.
Which I get because it's a legal process.
And I think you're seeing more of that though.
Yeah.
I think we're finally getting to a point where, you know, during the height of the market, right? It was a conversation that you would have with folks of like, listen, the only way to hold them to this is to sue them for performance and to go through with that. And it takes time and it takes money. And the market is so strong that it might make sense to just put it back on the market and go back under contract and call it a day. Yeah. And people would opt for that. But now we're seeing a lot of people who are going the opposite direction. And they're like, no, like that's wrong. Like you agreed to do this. You have to do it. And they're really holding people's feet to the fire. And I mean, I think it's important because it is frustrating when it's like you have this 10-page document that really doesn't mean anything unless you're willing to have the stones to say, no, you agreed to this. This is what you're contractually obligated to do. And if the agents have the confidence to tell their clients, this is what you're responsible for doing, this is what they're responsible for doing, and giving them the education so that they can make that decision. But to just let things slide over and over again, I don't know.
I went through 2 weeks recently, like last week. I think it was last week and the week before. Yeah. Where it was just, I don't know, it was like a full moon, like for 2 weeks straight. But this one particular was a reinspection. And the day of, I got the phone call saying, hey, we got to cancel because of the seller says me personally, am not allowed back onto the property due to the reinspection. Why? Well, because he damaged one or two things during the inspection. Mind you, this is the first we've heard about this. Like we're like a month and a half later. Yeah. So even when they started pushing back, the seller's agent even said, I think they're just making it up. Coming to find out, they said, I damaged, quote unquote, the latch to the gate. The entire fence was literally being held up by like sticks and stuff laying against it. Like the whole thing was trash, right? So they said that we'll hire our own inspector, the seller, to do the reinspection.
That's not how that works.
No. But they did. And I told the buyer's agent, I said, just so you know, they don't have to share anything with you.
No.
They can just tell you everything's okay. And the inspector's not going to talk to you because you're not their client.
Right.
And he can't share the report with you because you're not their client. I've seen this before where they said, we have a home inspection and everything's fine. Can I see it? Nope. We ended up going back to the property late one evening.
With or without permission?
Not important. I was just told go. Granted, everything was crawl space stuff. So we didn't actually go into the house, blurring some lines, but whatever. But nothing was done. And we're talking about structural things not being done.
My question is, why can't you just attend the final walkthrough with them and their agent?
Good question.
Like, probably you can still delay a closing over that. Yeah. You know what was on your addendum to be fixed. You do or do not have receipts. And if it's not done. They
even got another contractor because the whole thing was like when we got the receipts for the work to be done, it was all shady, right? We're pretty sure it was a family member. They refused to give up a license number. It was a whole lot of dodging questions and stuff.
But that tells me they have an agent that was not representing them very well.
So they even got a contractor who had an actual license that said everything was fixed. It was after I had done the reinspection. And they just sent the reinspection report right on over to the list agent and said, we want credit. We want this much. No rebuttal at that point because they knew they had been caught. Yeah. Right. And this isn't on the list agent per se because I get as an agent, you're going by what the seller's telling you, right? I mean, the seller says, hey, I hired somebody, they fixed it, whatever. I mean,
as the listing agent?
Sure. I mean, as a good listing agent, you should be following up.
Yeah, right? That's your job.
A lot of agents just take the word of the sellers. Like, I have these receipts or whatever. But it goes back to they were hoping to close because once you close, it's all your problems. And there was who's going to go after a contractor or whatever, especially if you're not licensed, because Deport can't really do anything about that because you got to be licensed for them to do anything, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of other avenues you can do, but at the same time, are you willing to do it? Because no one ever is. And that's exactly what they were banking on, is that, yes, we have this contract. Yes, we agree to these repairs. Yes, we agree for a certain standard for these repairs, qualified, licensed, whatever. We didn't do any of that, but if we just get to the closing table, it's a you problem now.
This is exactly why people have such a problem with realtors.
Yeah.
This is exactly why, because it comes down to whether or not are you actually doing your due diligence, are you doing your job, and are you protecting your client? And even if you're the listing agent, right? Like your client has agreed to do X, Y, and Z. And so it is your job to make sure that they did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and if you take a lazy approach, and if you're chasing a check, that's your integrity. Like that's your character, and it's a real problem. And so when you have an industry where people decide to overlook things or just decide to pray that it's all going to turn out okay, I do not blame people for having such an issue with our industry when this is the reputation that happens over and over again. And especially, I mean, if you're the buyer's agent, like, you better make dang sure that everything was done to protect them to the best of their ability. And you also better educate them on the fact that, like, sure, we can ask for this money and they may give it to us and all of that. But, like, once we close, this house is yours and these problems are yours. And you better hope that that's enough money to cover all of those problems. Yeah. Because if not, don't call me. Like, and I think it takes a while to get to that point in your career where you're willing to have these hard conversations of, like, listen, my job is to protect you. My job is to tell you the truth, not what you want to hear. And if you cannot do that, get the heck out of this industry.
Yeah, there was another one recently. I was involved because I did a walkthrough for the buyer, but I know the list agent very well, right? And the buyer's agent just, let's waive inspections every time. That's their game plan, right? So some drama happened. The list agent was stopping by. I forget why. This is right after closing. I think the pickup, drop off a key, pick up lockbox, whatever she was doing. But they were there. Agent, clients were there looking at the house. And the agent said something like, I forget what the exact issue was, but he says, hey, you need to get this fixed. And she had already been pretty rude to the list agent up until that point. Like, very rude, right? And the list agent, I was like, no. He's like, oh, yeah, you need to fix this. No, we closed. You knew this was an issue before we closed. You closed, looked at the clients like, I'm sorry, but this is your house now. My sellers ain't doing anything. Gave her the keys, walked off.
Yep.
But just the way she said it was just like you're going to, no, you went ahead and closed knowing this was an issue. You didn't say anything to anybody, and now you just assume that we're going to, no, this was negotiated. Nothing, no, you closed. That's not how this works. This is a you problem.
And I think that is one of the hardest lessons that I have to teach to the rookies, or, to help educate them on, at the end of the day, your only remedy, no matter what, is to delay closing. Yeah. And it sucks. Like, it's really hard when their moving truck is packed, it's parked outside, like, they're ready to go. The movers are scheduled or whatever, or mom and dad have the kids and all of that. Like, when it's those final moments and I have to put my foot down and be like, no, in an effort to protect you, you should not close on this house. Like, here's your options moving forward. But if you close, just know all of this becomes your problem. Yeah. And there's nothing I can do at that point. That
reinspection, they were pushing hard to close. They were throwing out, like, this isn't a reason to postpone closing. We have to close today, blah, 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 all these things, while denying the client the right for a reinspection. Yeah. And I mean, the brokers got involved because I talked to the broker quite a bit. He's like, they have a right. It's in the contract. You have a right to make sure the repairs. Like, we're not closing until this is done. And even the listing agent's broker was trying to take up for them. And it's like, no, like, you're wrong. All of you are wrong in this. Like, we're not closing. Well, you don't have a right to delay closing. Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, we do.
And I think that goes back to your point of, like, in this industry, if you're going to represent people, you better 100% understand what this contract says. That is your job. Like, that's what frustrates me, is when people are like, oh, you're just an overpaid door opener. It's like, opening the door is not my job. It's actually not my job. Yeah. Like, my job is to know the contract. You don't need me to open the door, right? Yeah. There's open houses. The listing agent could technically open the door for you. They can't tell you anything. They can't represent anything. They can't really help you, but they could open the door. There's even an app for that. Like, you can third party somebody opening a door. Yeah. That is not my job. That's not what you need me for. And what you actually need an agent for is for everything that comes next, and for being sure that they understand that contract like the back of their hand so that they can protect you. And if they don't, that's your problem now. Yeah. And you hired them. Yeah. Like, that's where I don't have sympathy for people, is when they're like, my agent was terrible. And I was like, well, did you fire him? And they're like, no, like they didn't do anything though. And like this drama happened and like they couldn't eat. And I was like, did you fire them? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, you hired them, you ding dong. Like you chose to hire them. Did you interview them? Did you interview others? Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
in what other industry do people get to be like, yeah, they don't do their job. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't show up on time, whatever. And then they don't get fired. Like that does not make sense to me.
I think the biggest problem with the industry in general is the lack of usage, right? So you can go to Chick-fil-A every day of the week and you have an idea of how it's supposed to operate.
Right.
So if you go to a different Chick-fil-A and they're horrible, you have a comparison, right? Or a different fast food restaurant. Like, man, I know how this is supposed to look.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't look like that, right? That's not a very good business over there. But because you buy a house once, right? You know, some people buy it once in a lifetime. Sometimes it's but it's not
5 to 7
enough.
years.
Yeah. So it's not enough to understand what good looks like, you know, because you can have the most mediocre whatever. And you're like, man, they did a really great job. Because we hear it all the time. Like, hey, I've had other home inspections.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Right. You know, I mean, like they wasn't this thorough, wasn't this good at explaining things, wasn't this, that, you know, whatever the reason is. But it's but if you go to all these different websites, they're all, or Google pages, it's all 5-star reviews. And I always tell people reviews are important, right? It's important for SEO, it's important for business, whatever. But at the end of the day, you always take reviews with a grain of salt because especially in an industry where people don't truly know what you do.
Right.
There's zero comparison. I don't know what good looks like. This must be good, right? And in 5 or 6 years, they go get another one and I'm like, wow, yeah, my last agent or inspector or lender, they were really bad and I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't tell me any of this stuff. By the time you thought it was really good because you didn't know any better.
Yep.
You know, so there's a lot of fake it till you make it because we take advantage of the fact that you don't really know what we do.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you get lucky too, especially as an agent. And I think if you're one of those agents who takes the approach of like, you have to waive a home inspection to get a house, right? If that's your advice that you're giving somebody and they don't know, they don't have any knowledge or experience in this, or at least not frequent enough to realize like that's really screwed up advice. But like if you're avoiding the number one thing, in my opinion, that causes a transaction to go south, if you're consistently avoiding that, then they don't know that you have no clue, right? Yeah. They don't know that you don't know how to negotiate. They don't know that you don't understand paragraph 16 and what it means and what you're allowed to hold up closing for and all of the things that come next. Like you think about it, paragraph 16 is that's the inspection paragraph. It's the only one that takes up an entire page. Yeah. And so it's my favorite one to teach. But when agents ignore that and they don't ever have to go through that process, it's so funny because they end up like, I run into them. They're talking so loud and so wrong. And you're like, baby, read it. Like, read it. Yeah. It tells you exactly how this is going to go. And they're still out there like, no, we don't have to do that. You don't get a re-inspection. And you're like, if you go down and you read, see this sentence, like I'm going to read it with you. I'm going to send you a picture. Like, you know, but yeah, if they don't have to actually do their job, if they're, you know, they're, I don't know, shiesty enough to figure out how to avoid it, then you'll never know. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And a lot of them bank on being loud that you'll just back down. Yep. Because a lot of agents do. They don't want, human nature is to avoid confrontation. Right. So if you're forceful enough and loud enough, like, oh, well, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. You know, maybe they do, maybe they are right. Or maybe we'll just go ahead and avoid this and push through and close so I don't have to deal with it. Yeah. And I think that right there it's the number one hardest thing of owning a business is being able to take the time to learn your skill, to learn what it is that you need to know and to be confident and calm in it. Like, you know, like I'm a very passionate person and all of that. And when I teach this and, you know, people will be like, oh, you don't want a contract with Mandy Whitlock's name on it. Like, good luck. It's going to be like, you know, like she's going to call you out when you're wrong and whatever. And I'm like, you know, it's funny that they say that, but the reality is like, I am, believe it or not, like I'm very kind. Like I am going to talk you through this and I'm going to be incredibly kind and decent to you. But what I'm not going to do is let you yell at me or scream at me or be disrespectful because I know my stuff. And like, you have to get to a point where you're really confident in what it is that you do, so that there's no reason to yell. Like, there's no reason for me to be nasty to you, because it is what it is. It's black and white. This is how this goes.
Yelling is typically a sign of, again, there's no proof or evidence to back up that you're right. So we're just going to yell.
You're just talking louder and hoping that it gets you somewhere.
That's exactly what it is. And I've told, Courtney, I've told Amanda, I said, people, they call in yelling, hang up on them.
Hang up.
I don't care. We can be professionals and have an adult conversation, but you will not yell. We can try this again when you calm down. Because read the contract. I don't have to do anything for you. I'm happy to help you, but you're not going to call me, yell at me, and curse at me.
And I think that is one of the hardest skills to learn as a business owner. It
is. Because, the first time, just like with anything, like especially when you're building a business and you get that first email or that first bad review, and you're like, oh man, because you get tunnel vision all of a sudden. You're like, man, this is it. Like, I'm closing up my doors. Like, I'm going bankrupt. It's like a $200 problem. I'm going bankrupt. This is going to spread like wildfire. Nobody's ever going to use me. So you get real panicky real quick because you get tunnel vision on that. But after a while, you just start like, you know what? I could probably delete this. Nobody's going to care, right?
I do a lot. Like, if somebody calls angry, and I normally will be like, oh, well, let me call you back. I got to check up on that. And I'll give them like a day just to like simmer. And I'll call them back the next day. And normally they'll calm down by then.
Like when they call, this doesn't happen a lot, right?
Right.
Preface that.
Right, which makes it worse though, because it catches you really off guard when like you're not used to people just like losing their marbles.
No, I'm okay with it. I love it.
I love it.
Whatever. Because I go, send them all to me. I'll go, I'm sorry, I can't help you out.
Right.
Like, but they'll call me and say, hey, this person called. This is their issue, whatever. They were very, very mad. I'm like, okay, I'll look up, whatever. And I won't respond until that evening. And I'll go home and I'll respond after hours in an email. And typically my response is, hey, sorry, so late. I've been out in the field all day, napping, whatever. And because 99% of the time it's a BS issue, right? And I'll attach the report, or look at section whatever, if you read this paragraph there. But then also, one, it gives them, again, distance to calm down from the phone call, Two, I've started an email written communication chain, so everything's in writing at this point. So now they can read it and process it versus getting into a real-time argument with me. And either I never hear back from them, or I hear back like, yeah, I see it now. Those are typically the two responses.
The two like issues that we get a lot. Well, not a lot, but like the two
not
main.
Not a lot, Courtney.
not a lot, but I'm saying out of like the angry people, the two main issues are either the inspector missed something, but it's actually in the report, and they just don't look like people just don't look at the report as they should.
Right.
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Because they're really intimidating. I think that.
That and a lot of agents say, I just read the summary.
Why? Again, this
100%.
is why people hate us.
Especially with our like reports, sometimes I'll get calls and I'm not a home inspector. I don't know what any of that looks like. And I'll be able to go into the report and be like, well, it says it right here. And I just read straight from their report what the issue is. And I'm like, if I can do it, you can do it. Because I don't know anything. Like, I may be working here for, like, 2.5 years or something. But, like, I still don't know nothing about, like, that whole realm of it. Like, I don't know issues. I don't know what an HVAC is supposed to look like.
A lot of it is because agents aren't setting proper expectations or how to, or 100%. Go actually through the report. And I get they're long, right? They're long because y'all have made them that long. Right?
And they're important. And that's another thing I want to talk about in a second. But like, I had this happen. Some good friends of mine, they were looking at a property and it's really big. And I tell everybody, you have to be at your inspection. You have to.
Yeah.
Like, from the first time I sit down with you, this is a non-negotiable. Like, if somebody's traveling, we're going to figure it out. Like, tell me that ahead of time so that I can put that into the purchase agreement. Or if a spouse is somewhere, at least one of the parties to the transaction has to be there. And my friends were like, well, yeah, like I understand, Mandy, it's like a CYA for you. Like you don't want it coming back on you. And I was like, look, it's a little bit of that, but it's a lot of bit of my job is to protect you.
Yeah.
And you being there is actually really beneficial.
Yes.
Like, you know this, I tell you, you have to run down at the end every single thing that's going to be in that inspection report. I don't care how quick you do it, but like they need to be there so that they understand where's your main water cut off, and you teach them stuff while you're there, but also so that nothing is a surprise in the report.
And that's the thing. I think if we were to actually track it, again, it doesn't happen very often, but if we were actually tracking, I can almost guarantee that the majority of the ones that we have an issue with are those that either didn't show up or paid zero attention when we were talking. Mm-hmm. And you can see that. Like, I mean, I've had one, and she called her agent, and, you know, did he even look at anything? And it was every single issue she complained about was in the report. And the entire time I was talking to her on site, there was nobody was paying attention.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, there's enough information in this report to let you know you bought a shit house. Mm-hmm. You still bought that shit house. It is not my fault that you didn't read the report.
And one of the things, and that I train to too, is that when I'm there at a home inspection, like you've seen this, I go over paragraph 16 with them while we're at the home inspection. Yeah. Like you're running around doing your thing, but I'm telling them, here's what you can and cannot ask for, and here's what the timelines look like. And we'll go over this again when we go into asking for your repairs, but I'm prepping them already for like how this is going to go, because it is that serious. Like this is literally the number one thing that we can do to try to protect you, try to set you up for success. And also it's the number one reason that your contract's going to fall apart most of the time.
For a lot of contracts, or a lot of deals, that's your last exit. Mm-hmm. You know, once you get past that, you're done.
It really is. Like
you're trapped.
I think people overlook it so much.
Oh yeah.
Well, because a lot of it is, again, it goes back to the prep by the agent. And it just isn't bashing agents, but it's true.
It's true.
That agents downplayed a lot. You know,
waiving it completely. Like that's insane to me.
Waiving it completely. They downplay it. You know, he's going to find a whole bunch of stuff, you know, just be, and while you're setting expectations.
They're going to nitpick a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, hey, look, we found 90 things. Yeah, I get it. They're all 90 maintenance things. But at the same time, that shows you how well the house was being kept up, which is not very well. Right. So what are you going to find when you live in there for a month? I was here for 3 hours and I found 80 to 90 things.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to find when you're living here? You know, maybe a couple other things that I couldn't see in the couple hours I was here, you know? Right. So yeah, a lot of it goes back to just trying to downplay it. I only care about the summary. I don't know if I had $1 for every time I heard I only care about the summary, I wouldn't even have to, I'd just give this company away free, right? Yeah. I mean, I'd be done. And then, because we get those phone calls like, hey, you know, why was this in the report? It was in the report. Well, it wasn't a summary because it's not a summary item, you know, but it's in the report. Yep. Well, my agent told me they only care about the summary. That's what they care about.
Right. This is your house.
You should care about the whole
thing. This is your investment.
And I get where the agent's coming from, because that's what you're allowed, quote unquote, to negotiate, right? That's what you're asking for.
No, you can negotiate whatever you want. You can attempt whatever you want.
You can ask for whatever.
They may say no.
Yeah.
Right? If you have an agent who actually knows what they're doing, right? They may look at this and be like, that's not a defect, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can't ask, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't shoot your shot, especially because at the end of the day, this is what irritates the heck out of me, and why I asked you that question earlier. At the end of the day, I work for you.
Yeah.
Like, it is the seller and the buyer negotiating. Yeah. We are just the avenue in which that happens. Like, Mandy doesn't get to decide what you're doing. I don't get to decide what you want repaired. I don't.
And that's such a great point, because a lot of times another argument that breaks out sometimes is who do we work for? Going back to, well, why do you put this in the report? I don't like it that you put that in the report. The report's not for you. Nope. It's for the client. Mm-hmm. And I've never had a bad review because, well, he put too much in the report.
Right.
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, because clients want to know.
Yeah.
I get it. It makes your job a little bit harder when there's all the things, but at the same time, clients want to know.
I don't feel bad for you. You were hired to do a job.
Yeah.
This is what your job is to go in and find problems, no matter how big or how small.
Yeah.
That's your job.
because even if they're a bunch of small ones, it gives you an overall picture of the condition of the house and how well it's been maintained.
Right.
So, but we get that quite a bit. I like you, but you just write up too much stuff. And I've looked at other inspection reports.
I know exactly who said that to you. I can think of someone in my office who said that exact sentence to you at some point or another.
And it's like, again, when you're first starting out, you get paranoid, right? Like, am I? And I started looking and I started watching YouTube videos of very successful home inspectors. Like, you know what? I'm writing all the same things up they are. Like, we're good, right? But you just got to get into that mindset of, you know what? I don't work for the agent. We work together, but I don't work for the agent. I work for the client. And the clients, and I've had that discussion with an agent before, like, hey, you going to answer the phone when it rings? Well, no. Are you going to pay the bill? When they say, I missed this, or I didn't put it in the report? No.
Right.
Are you going to take ownership of that bad review? No. I don't know you see where I'm going with this.
Well, and to me, I'm like, a home inspection, it's something that I cover literally from that first conversation. I go as far as to give them a copy of a home inspection. I black out all the information, but like, I want you to see what a very typical home inspection looks like. Because if you don't do that, then they absolutely panic. As soon as they see a 50+ page report of just problems, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. So I want to kind of set the stage for that. But at the same time, I tell them a home inspection is an investment. Like, it has cost associated with it. So you better hope they write it up.
Like, people call about is the price.
Right.
That's
Which
another thing that people
absurd
complain to hell and back.
How do you just sign a contract for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and you're going to balk at like $500 or $600? Like, what is wrong with you?
It is insane, especially because we just went up in prices. Like, we've been slowly going up, and people have been like, that's not what they told me before. And I'm like, well, that's what it is now. Before was a year ago. So
and to me, like, this is a question for you, actually. When you're looking at your business now, I have a curiosity, and if I had to guess, I think I could accurately guess, how much harder is your job now because people have been waiving inspections, because those homes are now coming on the market?
Oh, it sucks.
Which means I feel like you guys, I am consistently seeing reports that I feel like are longer than normal because it is houses over the last few years that have been completely, they were neglected before, they were sold off with a waived inspection, and now they're trying to sell them. And I mean, like,
that's the
everything's
problem.
Coming out now.
Because during COVID, sellers didn't care because their houses were selling no matter what. $50,000 over asking. So even when we were doing home inspections then, we were still finding a lot more stuff than a traditional market or whatever, because sellers didn't care. Like, I don't have to fix this
a lot
stuff
more tears.
But now,
and I mean, sellers used to just be like, sucks. Like,
Yeah.
do you want the house or not? If not, there's 15 other people who did. Like, make a decision.
So now you compound that with now 3 or 4 years later, for those that didn't, the seller didn't do anything, the buyer didn't get a home inspection, and now they're listing it, and now we're getting all the problems, right? And now, once again, we're the bad guys, because we're finding 20 grand worth of problems in a crawl space that's been there. I mean, during that 2 weeks of full moon, one of the re-inspections, they actually had a home inspection, which was kind of sad, because I thought it was a straight flip house.
Oh, you told me about this one.
Yeah. But still, I mean, a lot of problems. And over the last 3 or 4 years, they've just gotten worse.
Yeah.
And so now they're more expensive to fix.
Yep. And my other question for you, how many, so your business is growing, right? Like, this year is your best year and you're having a great year. How much of that is walk and talk inspections, and how much drama do you receive because of walk and talk inspections?
We have always been very fortunate that we've never done a ton of those.
Okay. And maybe we should explain what that is for people who don't know what it is, but
so the walk and talks is and it's always been a thing in DC area, because DC's always been that kind of market, but DC's also been an area where you could have 3 or 4 home inspectors at the same property at the same time, going through, like, they're passing like the panel to each other, like the panel cover for the electrical panel. But for here, it happened when they started waiving the inspection, and we would get the phone call like, hey, I got a showing at 1 o'clock. Can you send somebody to do a walk and talk? And we were literally just walk through the house.
During the span of the showing.
Of the 30 minutes, 15 minutes,
15 to 30 minutes. Yep.
And try to tell as many big problems as we could see, right?
And like, what are you looking at? Are you going straight to like a roof, straight to a crawl space,
well,
straight
that's
to an
where
HVAC?
it gets interesting, because you're not supposed to. I say supposed to because I can't really say you're not allowed, because people do whatever they want. But for a showing, like, you're not supposed to be throwing ladders on the side of the house.
You don't have
so
permission for that.
if you don't use a drone, you're not looking at the roof. If you don't have a pull down attic, you're not checking the attic, because you're not dragging a ladder.
Very good educational content.
Yeah,
for
you're
people.
not dragging a ladder into the house for a showing.
And how many agents try to bully you into that? How many agents are like, Sidney, just do it. Like, you're here. That's what we're paying you for.
There's a few, you know.
When they call to schedule that and they ask about the walk and talks, at least for me, I make it very clear you're not going to get a report. That's like, you are not going to get a report. They're not going to take
so what
anything.
Is the point? Like, we've
them.
talked about this.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest fraud ever. And agents who peddle this and are like, well, you're going to get a walk and talk. It's like, oh, come on, give me a break. Stop acting like you're doing them a favor.
It's a waste of what, $250? Is that what it is now?
I think I put it $275 now.
$275. It's a waste.
It's a complete waste.
Might as well pay the extra $200 to get a physical inspection done.
Right. And my thing is, you're paying for this on a house that you don't even know is yours yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what if
I've done 3 or 4 for the same client. Like, we're crossing into $1,000 for just walk and talks.
Right.
Insane.
And why? And like, my thing is too, like, there was one of my girlfriends wrote on a house, which actually was my first flip project way back in the day. And so she wrote on it. And I mean, back then I could tell you everything about this house, but it's been 4 years since then. So, you know, but I was like, look, like, I still wouldn't waive your home inspection. Like, it'll be a cold day in hell before you hear Mandy Whitlock say to waive a home inspection.
So even if I did the home inspection and you were doing like if pre-listing or whatever, I did it a year ago, and now
you don't know.
Still get another one.
I can't warranty any. I can't tell you anything. But
maybe I did it in August, and now it's March, and it's been pouring down the rain.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, there was 11 offers on that house, and a bunch of them waived their home inspection, and a bunch of them did walk-in talks. And I was like, you ding-dongs. Like, and I'm sorry, but is your agent even getting on the phone yet with the listing agent before they schedule a walk-in talk and let you spend nearly $300 on a pointless little chit-chat for 15 minutes? Like,
I got into a disagreement with an agent in the front yard in front of clients, and because she told me what she wanted me to do for this walk and talk. And this was like a couple months ago. Yeah. Wasn't that long. And she says, I want you to check the roof. We use a drone, sure. Check the attic, check the crawl space, take the cover off the panel. I said, I can't do the last one. Why? Because this is a showing. She says, no, it's a showing inspection. I said, no, it's not. I said, the board for home inspectors has made it very clear this is not an inspection. You, as an agent, call it whatever you want.
Yep.
We, as inspectors, are not allowed to call it an inspection, nor are we allowed to produce a report.
Yep.
Because now this becomes an actual inspection, and we cannot meet the threshold in 30 minutes. State law.
I am so happy that you have clarified this, because agents try to argue this all the time. And they're like...
She got mad. She got mad and walked off.
And it drives me nuts that the level of disrespect for the fact that this is somebody's home still. Like,
and that's the thing. Like,
you
this
cannot
is a showing.
just go in and do whatever you want. They gave you permission to do a showing.
You want to call the list agent?
They did not give you permission to do X, Y, and Z.
The worst one, this is the worst one, is when we get called to do it and I show up and it's an open house. Like, you didn't tell me this was an open house. And I've had to walk up to the agent and I'm like, hey, luckily the one and only one I did that happened to be that way, I knew the list agent. And she's kind of looked at me. She's like, you buying a house? I said, no. And I said, look, if you're not okay with this, I'll go home.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's fine. Just be discreet about it. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yep. And
so awkward and uncomfortable, right?
And I asked this in one of the classes that I teach, like, okay, if you're going to do a walk-in talk, do you call the list agent ahead of time and let them know that that's your intention? Every single agent said no. They're like, we don't have to. It's not required. Yeah. And I was like, really? So you're going to go in there and be rummaging around and whatever? Yeah. I'm like, okay, like, what? Do tell me the benefit of a walk-in talk.
This also comes back to the same thing we talked about with agents. There's a lot of home inspectors who don't understand the law and the board and their decisions and stuff like that, because I've been told, well, my normal home inspector gives me a report. Your normal home inspector is violation of the law. Mm-hmm. DPOR has made a ruling.
Right.
And you are not allowed to provide a written report. Well, my other home inspector would do this.
Okay.
Call him.
Yeah.
Because I'm not taking the panel off. Yeah. Because this is not my house. We do not have permission to be invasive. Home inspection is a non-invasive, but you're we're not allowed to take the panel off for this.
No.
You know, that's not part of a showing. You know, whatever.
And I would be so pissed if I
Yes.
was the seller and I find out that you brought somebody in. Like, and this is how I know that this should not be happening, is because it literally is in the contract where they are giving permission for a home inspection.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't have that box checked, you literally only have permission to do a showing.
Yeah.
That's it. So, like, sure, Sidney can come and he can look at some stuff, but, like, no, Sidney does not have permission to start poking around and crawling up in stuff and taking stuff apart. Like,
Yeah.
nope, that's not a
I've
thing.
done one where I'll come to find out I showed up and I was told after I showed up, nobody knew I was there. Nobody had given permission for an inspection to be done, but I was told to do an inspection. I'm like, I'm just like, you didn't tell me that then.
Yep.
I mean, because at the end of the day, I just get,
Yeah.
they called, scheduled, I showed up. I had no idea I
Ignorance
was
is
allowed.
bliss. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be held liable for that if
I
you
think
don't
it
know.
finally passed in Massachusetts, and I got a little bit more details, and you look it up, but they removed the box for inspection contingencies. Every buyer has a right to a 10-day inspection period and a 5-day inspection report review period.
Wow.
So no more of this, I'm on day 7 of 7, we have to get all this stuff done by midnight. No, you still have an additional 5 days after you get the report to review it.
That is my favorite thing that came out of COVID with all the new baby agents who don't know, is like, and I laughed because the first inspection you ever did for me, you were like, how the heck did you get 14 days?
Yeah.
And I was like, because people don't even think to ask. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't get on the phone and ask that list agent, what do you have in hand, and feel them out and negotiate with them and talk to them about it. If they say they have nothing in hand and I ask, like, okay, if I send you an offer like this and this and this, will that get it done? Then I'm putting whatever I want in there. But I keep getting offers where they're like 3-day window. And I'm like, honey, I don't have anything. You could have asked for the moon.
Right.
But like, and I'm like, 3 days, like, sweetie, stop doing that to you and your client. Like,
5 and
there's no
7 is the
need.
norm. Yeah, and it's yeah. I've gotten phone calls, 9:30 at night. Can you do one tomorrow?
Nope.
No.
I wish they would ban walk and talks. I really do.
I do too.
We've talked about
I
this.
really-
I think it's such it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Just get rid of them.
Fortunately,
we have
like I
to
said,
stop.
fortunately for us, we just don't. I don't even know the last time we even got a request for one.
Oh, you get them all the
normally-
time.
I
I
normally
see you
talk
getting
people-
tagged for them
Yes,
on the
I get tagged for
mastermind
those.
pages. And they're like, can you do it tomorrow at 9? And I'm just like, I promise you, Sydney's
Yeah.
not doing that. Like, it's like a Sunday.
And there's even
I
been
love
a
telling
few-
people no and they're asking, hey,
know.
can you come out today?
Yeah.
I know.
No,
I keep
I
begging
love it.
Sydney to make it like $600 to do a walk and talk. Like, just put an astronomical fee on it for like 15 minutes of your time. Because otherwise, like, what's the point? Why would you drag yourself out of bed
Well,
for
that's
this?
the thing. So going back to clients price shopping and stuff, which actually I think more agents price shop us than clients nowadays.
Which makes me laugh.
Yeah, it really is fun. The ones that complain the most are the ones that's not paying for it. But
And who
that's-
is? Like,
Yeah. But I think, and I mean, I'm the first to admit, like, I have been slow to keep up with inflation with our prices, right?
yeah.
Because I don't like lower income people who are struggling to skip or go find somebody cheaper because they can't afford the inspection, right? Because I know what that looks like. But at the same time, I got bills to pay, and life is expensive right now. So we've done some price increases over the last year to try to catch up.
But this also, I would like to say, as your friend and as a fellow business owner, this is 100% not your problem, and something that, again, their agent needs to educate
It's
them on.
not.
If you
It's not.
think you want to purchase
People
a
are,
house,
there's
we're
a
gonna
lot of
talk about
agents
that.
that's still talking about, like, it costs $300. Yeah, back in '98, it cost $300.
right? Like, no,
and
they
then
need
I've
to be
also
educated up front on what it
I had
costs.
one agent. I was in a group of people doing my thing, and and I think this was like last year, and they asked about our prices. I said, well, right now this is what they are, but we are getting ready to do a price increase. And the agent says, I wish I could get a pay raise. I'm like, I'm pretty sure if
You can charge whatever you want, you idiot.
Well, I
for the
told-
record. For the record.
do we need
Like,
to take that part out?
No, you don't. I would love to scream that from the rooftops because that really makes me
I
laugh.
looked at him and I said, look, if you sold a house at 123 Main Street in 2018 and you sold that same house today,
it's a price increase, you ding dong.
Is it more?
And you can't say that when all of you are consistently lowering your fees in an effort to get business. Like, I would love a price increase. It's like, well, you took a price decrease, so like maybe just move in the other direction.
The answer was
you thought you were worth it. Like, what?
Yeah,
That's
I was like,
ridiculous.
so hasn't the home prices gone up this much percent of whatever it was at the time? Now I got the answer. Was like, yeah. I was like, well, isn't 3% now more than 3%?
And have you done
then?
a single thing to earn more money? Have you put in more training or education or anything?
So why is it okay for you to make more money on a single transaction, which, results in thousands more the way 3% works, right? But I can't charge $25 more per inspection?
Unbelievable.
And there was a whole lot of silence after that one.
Sure.
Because
they just don't think it through. Loud and wrong.
I mean, I go shopping. I go shopping to food lounges like you do, and I gotta pay just the same price as you do.
Yep.
And our prices from 3 years ago ain't cutting anymore.
Nope.
My commercial vehicle policy jumped up by $2,000 in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
$2,000. Software, everything's gone up. So, but yeah, we've also turned away walk and talks. For the simple fact that I've said, hey, we can't take up an inspection slot. Like, we're too busy doing actual inspections that I'm not committing in the home inspector to do a walk and talk when we could be doing a full inspection.
This is my crusade, is to get home inspectors to just ditch walk and talks altogether, because the market will follow the lead. Like, they will start to understand.
We've talked about it.
What is the point?
Yeah. There's really not. There's not. When I did the Women's Council Realtors event in June, because we're in July. So June's event, there was a panel, and I got asked that question. And my first answer was, they suck, and they're a waste of time and money. And fortunately, the entire room pretty much agreed. So
that's shocking to me.
It was.
I think it's for, like, agents that don't want, like, the ones that are like, oh, you write too much in your report. Like, those type of agents.
It is. Because
it's
the
for
one
them
I got
to give their clients a sense of mind.
It's the ones that don't want to deal with the headache. Because let's be honest. Home inspections they're a headache for an agent to negotiate, right? Because that's the one you're talking the client off the ledge, right?
You're gonna make me lose my mind.
I am.
It's your job.
It is my job.
Your job.
But it's the biggest headache.
No, it's the agent's job. Like, I don't feel bad for you. If you want smooth sailing and an easy job, baby, this is not the industry for you. Like, it's just not.
It's not.
And putting your client at risk because you're too chicken to do your job the way it's supposed to be done, I don't feel bad for you.
No.
Like, cry me a river. That's ridiculous. I cannot believe, and this is what's so frustrating to me, is having to see it behind the scenes and not be able to do anything. Hear agents representing their clients to it's just such a poor degree, and their client has no idea. And then they go to sell the house, and there's all of these, and it's just like, oh man, like, it could have been avoided.
It would be impossible to do, but you almost want, and I'm not for government regulation at all, but you almost want somebody to be able to go back and do a checks and balances on this stuff.
And you know what? I think
auditing,
you
do an
should,
audit, but it's almost impossible.
Do you know how important the housing market is to our overall economy? Like, to me, it seems absolutely absurd that we just let people do whatever the heck they want.
Well,
with
this
something
goes back
so
to
big.
Virginia being a buyer beware state, and we're taking steps to prevent the buyers from doing due diligence in a buyer beware state.
Sure.
It blows my
While
mind.
simultaneously giving more and more tenant rights in the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a topic for another day. But yes, it's really sad to me to see. Like, you want to be in this industry, you want to make a lot of money, you better be damn sure that you're good at what you do and protect them. That's your job.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that was fun.
That was fun. It's always fun.
A little rant.
Yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we've offended the entire industry.
I know. All of my colleagues are like, sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I don't care. Mic drop.
Get up and walk out.
Yeah, I would.
Well, I've learned that the people that do their job are the ones that agree. The ones that get offended and like, well, I'm never using him, or I'm never using her, or I'm never going to work with her or him. Well, you were never going to do that anyways.
Yep. You just
No.
showed me exactly who you are.
Yeah,
and that's
wasn't gonna do that
okay.
anyways.
Like,
Yeah, so it's
all right.
okay. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I have like a list of people that I'm like, ooh, like I might work with them when I want to go and buy my own little townhome.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's why I don't mind being loud about the fact that like my job is to protect you. My job is not to make you like me.
Yeah.
Like you hired me for a reason. And this is the largest, for most people, the largest asset you're ever going to acquire in your lifetime. Like it's not a small thing. This
It's
is not
scary.
like buying a car. You don't give it back.
Yeah.
Like it's a big, big deal.
Yeah.
And it should be treated
and
like
once
that.
you close,
Yeah.
it's yours.
Once you close, problems
There's no
are yours.
going back. There's no
and
going
don't
back.
you dare call Mandy because it's like, oh, rough. Did you
Yeah.
want a contractor recommendation? Because that's
Yeah.
about all I can do for
Right.
you.
Right. Yeah. Well, this was fun.
It was fun.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited for your event tonight
It's
to
gonna be
watch
great.
you sing some karaoke.
It's going to be great. This is going to come
Woo!
out like a week later, but yeah, it's going to be a fun event tonight. We'll recap it on the next podcast.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. See drunk Mandy and singing karaoke.
Oh man, I think I might join you on the sober train for the night. Might be for the best.
That's awesome.
I'm excited to see who all is gonna turn it up and who's not.
Yeah.
Because apparently it's
better.
supposed to be like a lot of people going.
It's supposed to be a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm
That's
excited to
awesome.
see all the people there.
I want to boycott people for the next 2 weeks. There's going to be so many people there.
I know.
I'm
I
gonna be
started
there for an
inviting
hour and then I'm gonna leave.
Yeah. Well, I invited a bunch of people and then I texted him and I was like, can I invite people to this?
Yeah.
And I was like, because if he says no, the deed
Yeah.
has been done.
Bring them
so
all.
I
Bring
don't
them
know.
I also invited some of my friends, but they're probably not gonna come.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you invite everybody and they're like, yeah. And then, life gets in the way and then like
It does.
one person shows up. But I don't know.
Well, my friends are like, aren't there gonna be a bunch of old people there?
Oh, it hurts.
Every day
She's
of my
like,
life.
are they over 30 old people?
That's pretty much. I was like, no, there's gonna be some people that are around your age, like, because they're in their mid 20s. I was like, because I had to be like, well, how old are you guys again?
Yeah.
Oh my
I was like, you guys are old to me, so how old are you guys again? Because
You're
what's
old
your
to me.
old?
Sydney's
Like
old to me.
I'm the youngest in my friend group, so I say that they're all old.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys are old to me, so I don't know what do you guys consider old? Because
Yeah. And I remember being that way. I remember being in my 20s and being like, oh, if you're in your 30s, like you're
Yes,
old. And now I'm
yes.
like, oh no,
I called somebody a kid the other day. I'm like, what happened?
I
Where
know.
did that even come from?
But that's the crazy thing is you get older and then you like look at people in their early 20s and you're literally like, you're a child.
You're a child.
But I remember thinking I was so
Yeah.
at that. Okay, by the time I was 23, I had 2 children, right? Like,
oh
so,
my god,
But like, I look at 22-year-olds now. Like, I thought I was such an adult, and now I'm like, you're an actual baby.
Yeah.
Like, who let you live on your own? Like, this is scary. Come to my house. I'll make you dinner. Like, you can't be out here unsupervised.
that's how I feel now. Going to like the Williamsburg bars, William and
Oh,
Mary
yup.
has like, so you have one bar, Brick House, that's where the townies go. And that's like
Mm-hmm.
nobody, William and Mary students don't touch that bar because that's where all the old townie people go.
Yup.
So like, that's where me and my friends go. And as soon as I see some of the like college kids walk in there, I'm like, oh, what are you doing here?
That's how I felt. We went to Tap House after the MAME Home Builders event, and I was like, these kids are too young to be in here. And then it hit me all at once, and I was like, oh, no, I'm too old to be in here.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
crap, that's what's happening
Yep.
here. Is like, they're right where they should be.
Yep.
I'm the one who needs to, like, be at home in my footy pajamas, like, watching Real Housewives.
Clint Eastwood,
Like,
get off my lawn.
yeah,
Yes.
it was bad. I was like,
Yep.
oh, that reality check hurts you a little.
Yeah, it does.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
when you get like 18-year-olds walking into the bar from William and Mary, because
Yeah.
a bunch of, I will say that they've cracked down on that a lot. The fake IDs
the
at William
best.
and Mary, it used like you could get anywhere with a fake ID there,
Yeah.
but now they've cracked down on that a little bit.
Thank God, though.
But not, I mean, you still like, especially at Brick House, because they are a restaurant that turns into a bar at night. If you get in there before a certain time,
Then they don't know.
then yeah, how are they going to tell?
That's the move. Then you got to go get an early bird special.
And then I
and
hear all
you're
this.
fine.
And I'm okay being old.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all that.
And my
Hiding in
favorite is
restaurants,
our-
waiting for the bar to open.
Yeah.
And our generation's all deciding to be sober all at once.
Yes.
That's my favorite part
Yes.
too. Is we're just like,
Yes.
no, this is not it. This
Yeah.
is not worth it.
Awesome. Well, we'll do this again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. All right. Deal.
All right.
Why not? Thank you.